Ever since I remember, I went to make films. My family is just a middle-class family in Mexico with no connections with the artistic community. My mom loved books and cinema, but that was it.
Me acuerdo que de niño me torturaba con su Super 8 y era una especie de prop y extra y doble, nunca el protagónico. Entonces sí, nos molestaba mucho a mí y a mis hermanos.
I was 7 when I saw Bicycle Thief. And that movie, in a way, completely changed what I thought of film. The reason I saw that film is that my cousin was staying with me overnight, and my parents were away. They went out, and then we were watching TV, and then they said that the next film was only for adults, and we stayed late because we were expecting to see some titties. And it was Bicycle Thief, and there was no titties, but a lot of tears. And there was something different in that film from the movies I was used to see. And that kind of, it attracted me quite a lot. And then I started pursuing those films. What attracted me of Bicycle Thief is that it was presenting a reality that also I'm Mexican. So the reality of the neorealism in Italy, of Rome in the late 40s, in a way, was so close to me in Mexico in the 70s. The social dynamic was very close to what I would witness in the streets, and I was really touched that you could really go through a journey like that and feel the humanity and the empathy without any barriers of class or race. And but the thing I remember the most is that I was very affected. I cried and I was very affected in a deeper way that I had been affected by other melodramas that I would enjoy. And good thing is that period in Mexico was amazing in terms of the amount of cine clubs, and more important, the amount of cinema that you would see on TV.
Y la verdad, tengo que aceptar que la culpa de que yo me metiera a esto es por Alfonso. Que yo estaba con mi novia, literatura de la mano. Éramos novios de manita sudada y pues este güey me presentó a esta prostituta que se llama el cine y pues me dio tan buenas felaciones que me quedé con ella. Ya ves, eso no es fácil.
We moved houses, and there was a studio like 5 blocks away that they would do mostly commercials, but then I would just start hanging in there and watching how they would do commercials. But then I started getting my first jobs there. I was maybe 12 when I started working, doing different kind of PAing. And then one thing led to the other. I went to film school. I got together with a group of people, of filmmakers, including Emmanuel Lubitsch, who was the DP in Solo con tu pareja, and has been my collaborator ever since. Then later we started collaborating in a TV show called Hora Marcada, that it was some sort of Twilight Zone. We used to call it the Toilet Zone because of the budget. And you know, we had the opportunity to write our own shorts and direct them and edit them, and it was a lot of fun. Chivo, Emmanuel Lubitsch, did a bunch of them. I directed like 6 or 7, wrote all of the ones I directed, plus I wrote some shows for somebody else. Guillermo del Toro did several shows too. And that was great. I mean, I think that was after film school, that was the first thing in which we were doing we were trying to do our stuff. And Carlos, my brother, would write a lot of these shorts as well.
Y pues fue como muy natural, me acuerdo literalmente el diálogo que Alfonso me dijo: oye cabrón, pues tú eres escritor, ¿no? ¿O quieres ser escritor? Pues ¿por qué no escribes mis guiones? Y yo le dije, pues bueno, ¿por qué no? Y pues nos sentamos a colaborar juntos, ¿no? Y se dio una colaboración muy natural pues imagino, por la cuestión de ser hermanos y tener un lenguaje en común, espacios de vida en común, digamos, ¿no? Imágenes, vivencias, etcétera. Y pues eso, ha sido como muy fácil.
As you may know, during the golden period that they call of Mexican cinema, 40s and 50s, the production was huge. Then in the 60s was a big decay. Then the 70s was a period of authors. Definitely there's a period in which I think the best work of Ripstein, of Jaime Humberto Hermosillo, of José Estrada, of Felipe Casals, that I consider one of the most amazing filmmakers in Mexico. They were amazing films. The finance starts to be more government-oriented, state-sponsored more than anything else, because the industry audiences, Mexican cinema lost the middle class. The middle class stopped going to the movies. They stopped watching TV, or they would go to see foreign movies, but not Mexican films. I have my own opinion of what the core of this problem was, and it's called PRI. That is the party that was in power for 75 years in Mexico. Let me put it this way, into the generation of the 70s, the PRI was completely in your blood. And you don't question that the way of making movies is just seeking the favor of the state. It was very depressing. It was a period when I was in film school, and they will tell you that you go to film school so then after you can do spots for the government and stuff like that. To think about making movies was like a big idealistic utopia. You know, it was nothing that could come close to reality. I was very lucky that in film school, there was a generation that was feeling a little disconnected and differentiated from the whole mood of the industry. And that generation, I can talk about Luis Estrada and Emmanuel Lubitsch, obviously. Whenever people would tell us that we would never make movies and it was impossible, we wouldn't. It's as if we were talking a different language. And this guy who's in charge of cinema, of film in Mexico, is the guy who told me nobody cares about Mexican cinema in the world, and nobody cares about Mexican cinema in Mexico, so just finish it and shut up. You know, it was this whole thing of nobody cares about Mexico. And it was in the best interest of the PRI to make you think that. You know, you just depend on the holy ring of the bureaucrat in power. We were writing, Carlos and I were writing these hora marcadas, these things for the TV. And we were pretty good. We were doing like once a month or once every 2 months. You know, and it was fun, and it was. But I started feeling a little odd because I remember Chivo telling me, "Well, so you're doing all these TV shows, and then what's the next stage? What are you expecting? A soap opera?" And I remember being offended. What are you talking about? And it was an innocent question from his side. He said, "I don't understand. I mean, you're doing these things. What?" And then it was in Manzanillo in the Pacific Ocean. It was a New Year's, and after spending New Year's with the family, at the end of the night, in a terrace, I was with Carlos, and we started talking about which next hora marcada we were going to write. And it's when I told him, we're not going to write any other hora marcada, we should start writing our script. And very quickly in that night, we went through all the, you know, we opened the drawers of the mind to talk about all the different stories we talked throughout the years. And we decided for this one. It already had the title, Solo con tu pareja. And what I said is I'm going to take my last job as an assistant director to get enough money to get into pre-production, and let's do it. Let's write it together. And well, you finish writing what I'm doing this film as an AD, and as soon as I finish, we go into pre-production. That magically is what happened. When we start coming together with the concept, I really wanted to do a screwball comedy. I love Blake Edwards films, you know, but I love Lubitsch films. And I was intrigued about the whole thing of how to do a contemporary version of a Lubitsch film.
Pero lo que, digamos, como yo lo veo, que sí tiene de Lubitsch es el juego. O sea, Lubitsch era muy lúdico y era como un experto en la comedia de enredos, ¿no? En lo que en Estados Unidos llaman el screwball comedy. Y en ese sentido es en donde yo lo vería, y en donde la comedia no solo se queda en el nivel de comedia, sino que hay una exploración aunque sea ligera, de la sociedad, ¿no? Finalmente es el propósito de la comedia, ¿no? Hacer una crítica de la sociedad. Entonces, Lubitsch era muy bueno para eso.
It was not about trying to make something different or the same. I just wanted to do a movie that I wanted to do. The inspiration, the real inspiration had to do with the the myth of the Don Giovanni. I was listening to the Don Giovanni of Mozart, but the only thing I remember is that I was playing a different piece of Mozart that is in the movie, the serenades, the wind serenades, and I start drawing condoms, and I wrote Solo con tu pareja. And in a way, that was the point of departure, but we knew very well that it had to do with the Don Giovanni thing. It was a little bit Don Giovanni meets with Daniel Defoe, but set up in a contemporary Mexico City with the story of this contemporary Don Giovanni.
Pues lo que inspiró Solo con tu pareja fue una idea que tenía Alfonso de hacer un paralelismo, hacer una historia donde hubiera un paralelismo entre el libro de Defoe, de La Plaga, y compararlo con la peste moderna que sería el SIDA.
The reason we started dealing with AIDS was a very serious reason. We started discussing, it was very, in Mexico City, in our provincial Mexico City kind of macho society, AIDS became like a source for jokes, but more for homophobic jokes. Yeah, and then there was this whole thing of AIDS as a disease that was exclusive for gays. You know, it was like, and I think that was the point of departure. I remember saying, guys, AIDS can happen to anybody. What are you talking about? And it was like some denial. Even doctors would tell you. I remember going to the doctor and going to ask for an AIDS test, and he said, "Are you gay?" I said, "Then you don't need an AIDS test." Actually, the AIDS Commission in Mexico, CONACIDA, I think was the name of CONACIDA, was the commission that make the first spots in Mexico about AIDS. One being Solo con tu pareja, that means only with your partner, because the whole slogan was Solo con tu pareja o usa condón. It was only with your partner or use a condom.
Fue polémica en su momento porque la gente decía que por qué reírse del tema. La gente muy en la onda de la corrección política, digamos, ¿no? Y nuestro discurso siempre fue el de Woody Allen, que la comedia es tragedia más tiempo, pero que en este caso no teníamos tiempo. Que el SIDA estaba pues haciendo lo que acabó siendo esta pandemia y que nuestra manera de expresar era la comedia.
I guess that was the reason why we approached AIDS. We thought that it was interesting to put AIDS in the context of heterosexuals. Something that Solo con tu pareja has, and the big influence, if any influence, because I cannot talk about creative influence, but I can talk about an influence that the film had, was in terms of the casting in films in Mexico. Before Solo con tu pareja is what we used to joke as the package 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Mexican cinema. You know, you will have pretty much the same actors, but in different packages. And with this film, we wanted to just completely start afresh. We didn't want it to look like the other movies. We didn't want it to sound like the other movie. We didn't want to be performed by the same people as the other movies. We started digging into theater actors, like Daniel Jimenez Cacho, or Astrid Haddad, that she's also a singer, and just casting unknowns. We were looking for Japanese, and we found them in the embassy. And I think that they were working at the embassy, and they were fantastic. Tomás originally was with Daniel Jimenez in mind. I had a brief conversation with Daniel early on, but he was doing a play, and there was not a great chemistry originally between Daniel and me, and then I said, okay, let's move on. And we started looking for actors. We cast dozens and dozens and dozens of actors, and I remember Daniel was in Spain doing this play, and then I called, and it was like 3 weeks before start shooting, and then I called him in Spain. I'm saying, hey, please come and do this movie. And that's how it happened.
La historia de esto es que no encontraban al actor que querían. Y entonces, como no tenían actor, ya me llamaron a mí como último recurso
Es una técnica que mi hermano Alfonso ha ido perfeccionando, que es que al primero que casteas, luego casteas a 5,000 y luego vuelves a castear ese primero y te decides por él.
Era una cosa muy libre, teníamos mucho espacio y él sí sabía mucho más cine que yo, también era como tal vez era mi segundo largometraje. Entonces yo ahí aprendí muchísimo de él porque él sí sabía hacer cine, bueno, había estudiado, ¿no? Y fue todo un aprendizaje muy... Él como director en esa película como que proveía el sitio para jugar, ¿no? Yo recuerdo este trabajo como de mucho juego. Estábamos jugando y jugando y jugando constantemente, sin ninguna conciencia de esto que va a implicar y que nos va a ir bien y nos va a ir mal y la película se va a vender. Es más, creo que el éxito que tuvo a todos nos sorprendió. No había trabajado con ninguno de ellos, de los actores. Con Luis de Icaza fue un gran descubrimiento porque es un tipo que también, bueno, me llevaba a una ventaja bárbara en términos de experiencia y del manejo de la comedia, ¿no? Con ninguno había trabajado, para muchos era toda una novedad, ¿no? Pero creo que estábamos todos más o menos al mismo nivel, salvo Luis de Icaza, que en paz descanse. Yo creo que no hay nada, no creo que este personaje tenga algo tan típicamente mexicano y creo que esa fue una de sus virtudes, salirse un poco de los clichés y arquetipos que había en ese momento, ¿no? Yo creo que es un personaje occidental muy reconocible. Pues creo que la diferencia está en que aquí se le ven las debilidades todo el tiempo y cuando estás haciendo un macho, pues los machos no tienen debilidades, son bloques de piedra y de testosterona, ¿no? Y no, se le ven todo el tiempo las debilidades y más bien está sumergido en una cosa que no puede controlar y soñando con que el amor lo va a redimir. O sea, va a llegar de afuera algo que te va a redimir, una persona, una mujer, que te va a hacer salir de toda esta y va a convertir tu vida en algo más interesante, ¿no?
For the love interest, it was a more abstract love interest, and we were not really into trying to come in depth on the mechanism of falling in love. It was more about a more abstract equation, and in order to do that, we needed somebody who could embody a lot of fantasies.
Pues mira, eso de escoger a la coprotagonista como sobrecargo, pues es las obsesiones de Alfonso y mías, que desde niños siempre nos gustaron los aviones y en consecuencia, por supuesto, y sobre todo las sobrecargos, ¿no? Mis respetos, señora sobrecargos. Pues así fue, ¿no? De niños nos íbamos al aeropuerto a ver aviones. Y salió la azafata y de ahí salió pues esta imagen que me parece se volvió pues muy central en la película de la azafata en el momento que Tomás se enamora de ella, de que en cámara lenta está practicando el aviso de rutina, ¿no?
And the great thing of Claudia is that it was two things, is that she had an amazing persona on the screen. In Mexico, she was very recognized because she had done a bunch of campaigns as the beautiful girl. She had done a lot of commercials, and she was kind of a soap star. So I think it was a fantastic opportunity to get Claudia in the midst of the raunchiness that this film is. I mean, raunchiness compared to what she was used to do, or the way that she was used to appear. And so I think that was part of the decision of doing this with Claudia. It's something that we really wanted to do, is we wanted to do a film in which Mexico City was a character. I enjoy a great Mexico City when I grew up. And even in the late 80s, still was a Mexico City, was a highly enjoyable Mexico City. And in a way, we wanted to do something that would be a celebration of that Mexico City, but we wanted to do a celebration of Mexico City that we knew, not a Mexico City that has nostalgic or nationalistic colors to it. So we decided that Mexico was going to be a great opportunity you know, to be the catalyst for all these characters in the film. I wanted to create a heightened reality. We wanted to create a reality in which, for instance, we create a palette that I follow. After Solo con tu pareja, I follow through 3 or 4 more movies. And that's something that started happening in these TV shows, is that I would feel very uncomfortable with any color was not green. So I started getting rid of any color that was not green.
Era un universo todo verde. Así como Picasso tiene su periodo rosa y su periodo azul, pues digo, humildemente hasta el momento Alfonso tiene su periodo verde, que son sus primeras 3 películas, y ya después no sé cómo se llama su siguiente periodo, pues. Pero no había una importancia más que el capricho del director que quería la paleta en verdes.
But at the same time, we didn't want the greenness to be like a self-conscious thing that is distracting. We just wanted to set a palette for the whole thing. It was also a reaction. We wanted to do a design film. I think it was a reaction to a couple of decades of Mexican cinema in which the sense of style was almost lost. In that period, it was so important to transform reality to create a new reality. I really wanted to get into the nuts and bolts of filmmaking, in the sense of going all the way not to use reality for your film, but to transform reality and transform everything through the camera and through montage. I had a tremendous joy since early on when I started learning how to make movies is choreographing characters and camera movements. I enjoy when one cut can always be done in one way. Solo con tu pareja was storyboard from beginning to end before we start shooting. So most of the movements were already put on paper, but how to do them, she was always been around to make the right decisions on how fast can we go, how slow can we go. That's the amazing thing with Chivo, is that he connects not from a technical standpoint, but more from a storytelling aspect with the camera. And it's an amazing support to have. For me, the whole thing of the camera is very similar to my relationship with Emmanuel, with Chivo, is very similar to screenplay and my relationship with Carlos. I don't know where one thing starts and when the other thing ends. I just know that I'm better with Carlos and I'm better with Emmanuel.
Alfonso me tiene la confianza de, y eso cada vez lo hacemos más, de que él mientras está, él pone la escena, ¿no? Y después pues, se mete el fotógrafo y la demás gente a trabajar. Y mientras hace eso, generalmente me pide que siga pasando los diálogos con los actores, dependiendo qué escenas, por supuesto.
Yo siempre tuve la impresión de que eran como las 2 partes de un mismo ser, ¿no? Como 2 mitades que, sobre todo al verlos trabajar, como 2 mitades que se complementan muy bien, ¿no? Y donde se alternan mucho los roles, ¿no? Así como uno puede ser la cabeza de repente y el otro el cuerpo. Después también veía lo contrario, ¿no? Aunque él sea el director, ¿no?
Llegamos a un consenso. Como él es el director, luego es de hueva estarte peleando, ¿no? O sea, de todas maneras va a ganar. Realmente los escritores somos como ciudadanos de segunda clase.
Haz lo que quieras.
Sí. No, ya cuando se ponen muy pesados, sí, ya. Llégale. Entonces, pues es así, es como muy fluido, muy natural.
The truth of the matter is that when I work with Carlos, everything is about having fun. Even doing it to Mama también, it was about, even you're doing the dramatic scenes, but if you're laughing and having fun, then it means that probably something is working out.
Para mí la importancia del cine que hacen Alfonso y Carlos es que se le da voz a una generación y a una manera de ver México muy particular de ellos, pero pues eso es lo que es interesante. Y eso es lo que en México, con la escasez de producciones que hay, pues es difícil de lograr, que se oigan distintas voces, ¿no? Lo que ellos sí han podido hacer es tener un estilo muy, muy claro de lo que ellos quieren hacer y hablan como ellos hablan y se ven las situaciones que a ellos les gustan. Y eso no es tan fácil, ¿no? Porque en el camino te quedas convencido por productores y por gente que te da consejos de que mira, haz esto y cámbiale aquí y eso no es comercial. Y ellos sí han logrado hacer un cine que tiene un sello muy particular de ellos y que guste o no guste, representa y le da voz a una generación y a un momento preciso mexicano, ¿no? Eso es lo que se me hace muy importante.
The Spanish in both films and in Solo con tu pareja is very, very, very slangy. I think it's something that was very refreshing for particularly for younger audiences in Mexico. It was, I guess, that the first film in Mexico that really embraced the Chilango language. And people, kids will, I still find people now, not so kids because they're older, that they come and quote phrases of Solo con tu pareja. And it's not that we were discovering anything, we just taking who was in the streets and put it into the film.
Probablemente haya una nueva propuesta en las películas que hemos hecho Alfonso y yo en cuanto al cine mexicano, pero digamos que no, creo que no somos los indicados para decirlo, ahí que lo digan los críticos, ¿no? O la gente en todo caso. Lo que sí es cierto es, digamos, que en el momento en que se hizo Solo con tu pareja específicamente, no se había explorado una comedia de enredos juguetona como es la clase media aspiracional, llamémosle, mexicana, ¿no? Los yuppies y los wannabes, ¿no? Ahorita ya eso está generalizado, pero en ese momento fue como nuevo.
At the end, it became this kind of cult movie in Mexico. And I think one of the virtues of Solo con tu pareja is one of the first films that unashamedly spoke about the Mexican middle class. Some critics, particularly in Mexico, that they tend to be kind of very narrow-minded. They saw it as a bourgeois film, not even attempting to see that we were making fun of the whole thing. You know, they saw it more like a celebration than actually a particular view on this class in Mexico. I think that the big lesson of Solo con tu pareja, and was one of those lessons that it takes a long time to learn, because while you're involved in a drama, everything feels so passionate and so unfair, is that you learn that things have their own life. You know, there was a lot of frustration when, for whichever reasons in the past, the international distribution that we have of the film collapsed. So in a way, it teaches you that you have just to take each movie and respect the life of each movie in its own accord. Something that was very sad 15 years ago, it becomes a very happy event today. Definitely that also affects the way how you do things. I always question what would have happened if Solo would have the distribution that was promised originally. And maybe I wouldn't be talking to you today here. And maybe I would have done Y tu mamá también. I don't know. You know, Carlos, I think, says that the best thing that ever happened to me is that Solo con tu pareja was not successful. Yeah, and probably he's right.
Sin un amor, la vida no se llama vida.